No one understood why Issei couldn't confess to Rias. Rias couldn't take it and left Issei there. Everyone in the clubroom rebuked Issei and told him off, despite his genuine confusion on the matter. What happens when they don't realize their folly in time? What happens when Issei decides no more? What happens when Issei can't confess to Rias? Will you die for me, Angel Issei? Chapter 1. Heartbreak. Okay. I know this is really short for me, and also, I just posted a chapter for one of my fairy tale stories. But after reading the latest chapter of A Fragile Heart by Gunmare, which isn't going at all how I want it to, I decided to rectify this, and write my own take on what could have happened during Volume 10. In addition to the above-mentioned reason, this in the light novel, made me downright hate Rias for weeks. I mean, she was there, she saw what happened to Issei and never once thought that was why he couldn't confess to her. Since I wrote this so quickly, I haven't had time to formulate much of a plan for it yet, or even a pairing. I'm currently tossing up between 3, Gabriel, Ophis or Tiamat. I will think on it a bit more and probably post another short chapter tomorrow with the result. It is 5:55 AM here right now. Yeah, I was that motivated to write this. I cracked it out in 30 minutes in the middle of the night, almost the early morning. But I would like your opinions as well. Obviously, it goes without saying that none of the orc girls can be in this, and I'm even thinking of a single pairing. Shocker, right? Especially in DxD, which is itself a harem genre. In any case, please let me know what you think, and sorry if there are typos. I rushed this like crazy, but I will proofread it tomorrow. SSJ3 Kyuubi Gohan. Disclaimer: I don't own anything from the high school DxD anime, manga, light novel. All I own are my original characters and plot twists. Talking, thinking, Diedrich talking and sacred gear sounds. Diedrich thinking, expression flashback chapter 1 Heartbreak. Issei. To you. What am I? Who am I? Asked Rias, her back to Issei. To me president is president, said Issei slightly confused. Idiot. Cried Rias, he voiced sounding as though she was crying, a sob escaping her throat. Rias rushed out of the clubroom. Asia rushed to the door, but paused to look back at Issei. Issei, you are horrible. It's too much. Why can't you understand Rias' feelings? Questioned Asia, tears in her eyes, confusing Issei, before she went after Rias. That wasn't right, Issei, said Yudo with a sigh. And not right as in what? Asked Issei in confusion. That, exactly that. I can understand very well what the girls are going through, said Yudo, sounding exasperated. Exactly. It is natural for Rias and Asia to get mad. Scolded Akeno, sounding angry as well. Even I, who is dense at these sorts of things, thought you were a bit off, Issei. Chimed in Xenovia. Issei, sure is a no-no. Poor Rias, added Irina, sounding mad as well. You are the worst, said Kaneko as a cold voice. Issei, meanwhile, was utterly confused and had no idea why everyone was looking at him in such disappointment and anger. I don't get it. What did I do? Thought Issei, before turning to Gasper. Hey Gasper, am I really bad here? Asked Issei desperately. Gasper seemed somewhat uncomfortable, but answered nonetheless. Yes, I think you are very bad, said Gasper timidly, causing Issei to drop to his knees. This is the fault of my mother and I, right? I'm sorry, said Ravel, getting Issei to look at her strangely. How is this Ravel's fault? Questioned Issei. Akeno walked over to Ravel and placed her hands on her shoulders. This isn't your fault, Ravel. Issei is most at fault here because he never tried to think about the crucial thing between Rias and himself until now, said Akeno kindly, causing Ravel to perk up. The atmosphere was so tense, Issei couldn't take it and abruptly left the room, getting some surprised expressions from those in the clubroom. Do you think he will go to Rias and make things right? Asked Yuto curiously. I hope so. Rias looked crushed, said Akeno. I just don't understand why Issei keeps acting like this, said Xenovia with a sigh. Hopefully, Issei senpai will fix everything, said Gasper hopefully. Line break. I don't understand. Why was everyone so angry with me? What did I do? Thought Issei, as he clenched his fist. I can't take this anymore. This sense of unknowing, not knowing if President loves me or not, if all the girls love me or not, or if, thought Issei, before a face flashed in his mind. Will you die for me? Issei clenched his chest as he entered his house, Both his parents were out shopping. Their new house required lots of supplies after all. Issei chuckled dryly. Is that all I was to them, the prized Red Dragon Emperor? Someone to show off in front of others, but never be honest with? Thought Issei. The pain of that very thought caused him to scrunch his eyes up. Well, no more. I know it wasn't the best idea to continue to be such an open pervert. I love boobs so much, but it seems none of them take me seriously because of it. Thought Issei, remembering the verbal assault he had just taken, as he entered his room. No more. I can't do this anymore, shouted Issei internally as he started to cry. The sense of not knowing, the sense of fear, that feeling of uncertainty. Thought Issei as he closed his eyes shut tightly. Will you die for me? No more. Whispered Issei, as he quickly packed a backpack with all he needed from his room, before heading down to the kitchen. No more. Muttered Issei sadly, as he grabbed enough food to last him for a few weeks. No more. Said Issei, as he closed the door behind him and dropped his key on the mat. No more. Shouted Issei, as a red glow suddenly encompassed his being and a magic circle appeared under him. A massive amount of energy burst from Issei's form, so strong that everyone in Kuo felt it, even those who were not magically aware. Will you die for me? RRRRAGGGGGHHRHRHRH hahara, roared Issei in agony, before he vanished in a burst of red energy. Line break, Kiba senpai, said Gasper timidly, sometime after Issei had left the clubroom. What is it, Gasper? Asked Yuto. Was it fair for all of us to gang up on Issei-senpai like that? Asked Gasper. What do you mean, Gasper? We didn't gang up on him, replied Yuto. Well, he did seem to be really confused, added Ravel timidly. You have a point. Issei did seem to be genuinely confused, but why? Added Xenovia. Do you think we were a bit too hard on him? Asked Irina. Well, Issei needs to understand how Rias feels, it is important to all of us as well. If Issei can't admit his feelings to Rias, then how is he? Oh no, said Akeno, suddenly coming to a realization. What is it, Akeno? Asked Yuto curiously. Issei couldn't admit his feelings to Rias. That was it, shouted Akeno in realization. What do you mean? Asked Irina. The last person Issei admitted his feelings to, said Akeno, as a look of shock appeared on her face. Rainier, said Kaneko suddenly as her eyes widened. Yuto's eyes widened at this. Of course, how could we forget? Shouted Kiba in horror. What do you mean? Who is Rainier? Asked Irina curiously. Issei's first and only girlfriend, one who he confessed his love to, but she was a fallen angel and she killed him, for the boosted gear, said Akeno sadly. So do you think that because of that, he can't admit his feelings to anyone, not even Rias? Asked Xenovia. Poor Issei-senpai, what have we done? Whimpered Gasper. At that moment a huge wave of power was felt, along with a pained and anguished roar. Eyes that, Issei. Oh no, quick. We need to go find him, shouted Akeno, before they all ran to the sound of the voice. Line break. Rias was currently crying in a bathroom, her eyes puffy and swollen. Rias, are you okay? Asked Asia kindly, as she entered the bathroom and spotted Rias at the sinks. Sniff. Oh, I'm fine, Asia. What are you doing here? Asked Rias. I came to check up on you, Issei isn't being very nice to you right now, which is unlike him, said Asia timidly. Sniff. Well, I don't know what to tell you, Asia. I just can't get a straight answer from Issei, said Rias sadly. I'm sure he loves you, Rias, he would do anything for you, said Asia comfortingly, as she walked over to Rias and patted her on the shoulder. I just don't know anymore, it was easy in the beginning, he was a blunt pervert who loved breasts and said mine were the best. He fought tooth and nail to save me from Riser and from any other threats, said Rias fondly with a hiccup. I still remember when Issei first met me. He was so kind and honest, almost childlike, said Asia with a smile. Yeah, I remember when he woke up next to me for the first time, he was so nervous, commented Rias with a small smile. And I remember how he cried for me and called me his friend, even as I was dying in his arms. Issei wanted me to be happy, said Asia. The two reminisced in their memories for a moment before Rias remembered something. Although, after you died, he was heartbroken. His power rose dramatically and he even took down that fallen angel all by himself, I was so proud of him," said Rias. "Yes, I heard that he defeated Rainier, all for my sake," said Asia fondly. The two smiled at this, before they both came to the same realization. Rainier. They both cried, before feeling an immense wave of power, and a loud, pained roar of anguish that actually shattered the mirrors in the girls' bathroom. "Oh no, quickly. Asia, come stand next to me," shouted Rias to Asia, who obliged, before a large red magic circle appeared under the two. The two disappeared in a flash of red and appeared just outside the gates of the Hyodo household. The two ran up to the door before stopping at the doormat. Rias slumped to her knees in shock, while Asia raised her hands to her face and stifled a gasp, as she tried to hold back her tears. Moments later, everyone from the clubroom arrived as well and saw both Asia and Rias crying. Akeno looked to see what they were crying over, before she too cried as well. The rest of the girls did the same in turn, with Gasper crying as well when he saw the doormat, while Kiba clenched his fist in anger. There, on the mat of the Hyodo household, along with Issei's keys, were 8 pawn pieces. Ch 1 of 24. Next, Chapter 2. The truth hurts. Okay, so I tried to go to bed, 1 hour of futile, trying to sleep activities, and I have this entire story planned out. Let me lay everything out, plain and simple. Harem. Yes. Lemons. You won't believe it. Yes. Frequent updates. Yes, I'm focusing all on this story for the foreseeable future, as the idea is currently resonating with me immensely. Issei. Some of you might not like him, tough. This is honestly how I think he would react if his heart was utterly broken. Is Issei going to be op? Yes, although, at this stage in canon, he is already pretty op anyway. The ending. I can safely say now, at least a quarter of you will hate me for it. Will this story be awesome? Yes. Current harem. Gabriel, Yasaka, Kuroka, Ophis, Lefay, Rainier, not in person though, more symbolic. Possible additions to the harem. Ravel, Jean, Tiamat, pretty much anyone that I think might work well, is also a possible candidate. Feel free to suggest some. However, Rias, Akeno, Asia and Kaneko are so far gone. Issei would pair up with Gasper before them, so don't even bother suggesting them. Irina and Xenovia are also slim chances at best. Is an adrenaline rush from not sleeping awesome? Yes. Also, I'm going to keep chapters short for this story, so I can pump updates out quick. I'll probably do chapters around a 2 to 3k length word count, but I will just keep writing after each chapter. Enjoy. SSJ3 Kyuubi Gohan. Disclaimer: I don't own anything from the High School DxD anime, manga, light novel. All I own are my original characters and plot twists. Talking, thinking, Diedrich talking and sacred gear sounds. Diedrich thinking, expression flashback chapter 2. The truth hurts. But big brother, it's been almost a month now, cried Rias in annoyance. I'm sorry Rias, but no one can find Issei. He expelled his pieces and thus isn't a stray, but for the same reason, we have no way of tracking him at all. There really isn't anything we can do. Also, I know it isn't something you want to think about right now, but we have postponed the match with Sairaorg long enough. You'll have to face him this week, said Sirzechs gravely. Well then, it's your lucky day, isn't it? Because I'm back, said a voice, before a golden glow shone in the room, before Issei was revealed. Issei was clad in his school uniform, but he appeared noticeably buffer than before. His shirt and pants all strained against his body now, and his face had thinned slightly, giving his features a sharper look. I am possible, Issei, said Rias in shock. That's right, it is me, Rias, said Issei with a smile on his face. Rias smiled at this and went to run into Issei's arms, before she felt herself being held back. When she turned to yell at the person holding her back, she saw her brother, with an unusually stern expression. Yes, Rias, I'm back. Not for you of course, I'm back for school. It has been a whole month after all and I can't fall behind in my studies, said Issei mockingly, a smirk on his face. What are you talking about Issei? Questioned Rias in confusion. Rias, said Issei, as he shook his head, causing everyone in the room to look at Issei warily. Ironically, everyone in the room right now, with the addition of Sirzechs, were those who were there before Issei left. You really are a spoilt little princess, aren't you? Questioned Issei, as a look of anger appeared on his face. What do you mean? Asked Rias, sounding a little hurt. I died, in your sick twisted schemes. You could have told me to stay away from Rainier. After all, even then, and until just recently, I would have done everything you said. I died and was brought back as a devil, just so you could get a strong peace, to get you out of your marriage to Riser. I nearly died doing it too. I didn't care though, I loved you after all," said Issei, getting Rias to smile in joy, before she heard his words properly. "Loved?" asked Rias hesitantly. "Yes, loved because now. I hate you Rias Gremory," snarled Issei, driving a stake right through Rias' heart and shocking everyone in the room. "Why? What do you mean?" asked Rias tearfully. "I did everything for you, I died for you and I risked life and limb for you. I followed you into hell literally and figuratively, just because you cared for me, or so I thought," said Issei sourly. "But I do care for you Issei, I love you," shouted Rias in tears. "Do you now?" asked Issei, with a deadly flat tone. "Yes, Issei, I love you with all my heart and soul, and want to spend the rest of our lives together," cried Rias. "Words, nothing but sweet words. The very same words I would have died to hear from you just a month ago, but now, they mean absolutely nothing to me," said Issei, getting Rias to gasp. "You only ever thought about yourself. While I did my best to have you accept me and truth be told, you did to some extent, you never acted like a loved one. No, all this time, you used me as you saw fit. Then, and here comes the kicker, when you couldn't get one thing from me, one thing, do you know what you did?" asked Issei rhetorically. "You broke what was left of my heart," said Issei in a cold tone, which sent shivers up the spine of everyone. "I'm sorry Issei," cried Rias, openly weeping now. "I didn't realize that Rainier had hurt you that badly," continued Rias. "I wonder why," said Issei coldly, getting Rias to stop crying momentarily. "What do sniff you mean?" asked Rias in confusion. "What I mean, is that you never cared about me," shouted Issei, causing Rias to recoil. "All this year, you've been using me, flaunting your Red Dragon Emperor. Sure, I got strong under you, but what did you actually do? You might have been affectionate, physically with me, but, emotionally, they say no man is an island, but they must have never met you, Rias Gremory," hissed Issei. "You never acknowledged my emotions. You knew I loved you, yet, you toyed with me. Do you know how much that hurt me? I couldn't think, I didn't know the truth, constantly asking myself, does she really love me, as a partner? Then, no matter how many separate occasions you had, to heal the nagging doubt in my heart and mind, what did you do? Of course, make it all about you. You, Rias Gremory. Forget about Issei. Who cares if Issei has deeply seated emotional and trust issues? I just want him to say my name, because that means he loves me. Not like he hasn't proved it already, nearly dying for my sake. No, I need him to say my bloody name," shouted Issei, turning Rias into a sobbing mess. Issei breathed in for a moment before resuming. "In any case, I am done with you Rias Gremory, but let me fill you in on what happened to me a month ago," said Issei calmly, getting everyone to look at him, even the sobbing Rias. "You see, ejecting the evil pieces from my body should have killed me. It was only thanks to Diedrich sustaining my life force that I managed to survive. You nearly, literally killed me, with your selfishness," said Issei before pausing. "But then, I saw an angel, once again, quite literally," said Issei, getting a gasp from Irina. "That's right Irina, I'm an angel now, just like you. Well, maybe not just like you," said Issei, before 10 wings burst from his back. What, 10 wings already? But the color," said Irina in surprise. "Yes, a little thanks to Diedrich, my wings are now the same red of my balance breaker, although, you wanna know the best part?" said Issei with a smirk. "I can't fall ha 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 ha," laughed Issei, seeing the gobsmacked expressions on their face. "No way," shouted Irina in surprise. "It's true, I've even already lost my virginity since having them, and did it a few more times after that for good measure. I'll be an angel until the day I die," said Issei, dropping numerous revelations. What? Asked Rias in shock. "Oh, but I do believe I've gotten off topic. Ah yes, Gabriel saving me," said Issei with a nod. "Well, as you might have guessed, it wasn't easy turning me. Diedrich comes at a hefty price, no matter what conversion system you use," said Issei proudly. "So, does that mean you are Gabriel's ace?" asked Irina curiously. "Oh, heavens no, a simple ace would not be enough," said Issei cheerfully. "No way, you can't mean," said Irina before trailing off at the end. That's right, along with Dulio, I'm the other Joker, confirmed Issei with a smirk. But you want to know the really good part, Rias? Said Issei, getting Rias to look at him attentively. When Gabriel found me, barely clinging to life, only inches away from death's door, do you know what she said to me? Asked Issei. Rias remained silent. These were her words exactly. I can see that your heart is in pain, you have suffered much and gained little, for this reason, I will give you a third chance at life. I won't ever turn on you, or ask you for more than you can give. Know that you have my love, forever, and be strong. Become my Joker. Finished Issei, before glaring at Rias. A woman, no, a literal angel, did more for me in 2 minutes, than you've done for me, ever since I joined your little peerage. It must mean, that for someone who supposedly loves me, you have a terrible way of showing it. I suppose it is appropriate though, Gabriel is an angel and you are, in every sense of the word, a devil, said Issei harshly. Rias couldn't take it anymore and fled, just like before. Also, Sirzechs, since you are here, I suppose you should know, the little ceremony with Satan Red, that's all over now. I want nothing to do with Rias. Also, you should know, that I've arranged for my Opie Dragon royalties to go to my own, personal bank account, said Issei coolly. You know Issei, don't you think you are being a bit harsh? Rias explained what happened to me, and while I can agree with you, that she didn't understand your feelings, isn't this a bit much? Questioned Sirzechs. I suggest you wake up from your cis-con delusions and realize just how shallow of a person Rias is, said Issei, getting Sirzechs to frown. She complained how shallow Riser was, but she hurt me in ways you can't even imagine. Don't tell me this is too much, since I wanted to do a lot worse, but I promised Gabriel, said Issei. Issei, are you sure you mean that? Asked Sirzechs, as his lips thinned. Go on then, you don't like it. Kill me. I'm sure when the other Satans find out you killed the Red Dragon Emperor, an angel, and restarted the Great War, they will happily indulge you and all your cis-con delusions, retorted Issei. You're playing a dangerous game here, Issei, warned Sirzechs. On the contrary, I'm done being played with, replied Issei firmly. Sirzechs didn't respond and merely disappeared back to the underworld, using a magic circle. Well, now that the main problem is out of the way, allow me to tell you what I think about all of you, for absolutely breaking me and pushing me to the point of no return, said Issei. Issei, we didn't know, said Akeno, before Issei cut her off. I'll deal with you last, said Issei harshly, causing Akeno to recoil. Firstly, Xenovia and Irina. Xenovia, you yourself said you were dense. I guess that was right, since you were so dense you didn't realize how much pain I was in. Irina, for a supposed angel and a supposed childhood friend, you suck at both roles, said Issei harshly, causing them to look down in shame. That being said, since neither of you were here, when the event that scarred me for life took place, I can't be overly angry with you too. However, at this stage, I couldn't care less about either of you, said Issei indifferently. Gasper, you are actually my second favorite person in this room right now. I could tell that you, even during the verbal assault I took, were hesitant to add to it, seeing that something was wrong with me. For that reason, I don't hate you, and do in fact acknowledge you, but you are a pretty bad friend, said Issei sadly, which caused Gasper to look down. Revel, honestly, I hold none of this against you at all, said Issei, getting Revel to look at him in surprise. You didn't say anything hurtful and even tried to apologize. For that, I am thankful, and right now, you are the only one I see as a friend of mine in this room, said Issei with a smile, before his face hardened. You though, Asia, I am immensely annoyed with, said Issei, getting the former nun to look at him in surprise. I fought tooth and nail to save you from Rainier. I cried in agony when you died. I attacked Rainier in fury for what happened to you, and lastly, I begged Rias to save you, to give you a new life. You said I was your first friend. I wish I never was. The holy maiden who can heal all, even a devil, couldn't heal the pain in her supposed friend's heart, and in fact, thinks her friend is horrible, said Issei, getting Asia to cry in sadness. As for you three, said Issei looking at Akeno, Kiba and Kaneko. Let's start with the littlest one first, said Issei, as he faced Kaneko. You, who watched me from the shadows, from the beginning of it all. You, who fought with me in the church. You who claim to care for me. No, Kaneko, I'm not the worst. You are, said Issei in a flat tone. You know what the best part is though? Questioned Issei rhetorically, as Kaneko matched his gaze. In 1 month, I gained control over something that, to this day, terrifies you," said Issei, getting Kaneko to look at him with fearful eyes. "That's right," said Issei, before gathering senjutsu chakra around him. "Although, the best part, is who taught me, nay, Sharon," said Issei, getting Kaneko to look at him in panic. "That's right, you know who. She also took my virginity. She is one feisty cat, that Kuroka," said Issei, shocking many. "Now to you, pretty boy," said Issei, glaring at Yuto. "You can understand what the girls are going through, huh?" said Issei darkly. "Issei, we didn't know," said Yuto weakly, before Issei cut him off. "Bull. You of all people. Someone who was damaged so badly as a kid. You couldn't see the pain I was going through. All you could see was what that entitled little princess felt," said Issei, getting Kiba to frown. "Issei, that isn't fair," said Yuto. "Fair, hee because it was totally fair, for everyone to turn on me like that, huh?" questioned Issei, spitting out the word, fair, in anger, before turning to Akeno. "And now you," said Issei, to a slightly frightened Akeno. "You, someone who had problems with fallen angels your whole life, you couldn't see my pain, a pain, which I just recently helped you get through?" questioned Issei. "I'm so sorry, Issei," said Akeno, tears beginning to form in her eyes. "You know what I'm not sorry about?" asked Issei coldly. "I'm not sorry at all, about the fact that I can't fall, because if I ended up becoming a fallen angel like you and that bitch Rainier, I might just kill myself," said Issei darkly. "Will you die for me?" Issei snarled momentarily, before schooling his features. "Well, in any case, that's all I had to say. Now, I think I will go to class, since I've missed so much already," said Issei, before he left the clubroom, slamming the door behind him. "What have we done?" questioned Akeno sadly, as she wiped her tears. "We pushed Issei over the edge. It seems all of us turning on him, was too much for him," said Yuto sadly. Do you think he will ever forgive us?" asked Asia, eyes swimming with tears. "I don't think so," said Yuto grimly. Previous ch2 of 24 next. Chapter 3. Genetics. Well, the lack of sleep finally caught up with me, so I took a quick 3-hour nap, which caused the adrenaline to wear off. But, I'm still super hyped about this story, and even as I post this chapter, I'm already starting the next. I'm unstoppable right now. Although, you probably won't get the next chapter until tomorrow, since it is 7 in the afternoon now and I need to go eat some food now. Although, I have to say, the feedback I'm getting for this story is awesome. Keep it up everyone, and I'll just keep on churning out chapters. Also, interestingly enough, with this chapter, I've written over 70k words in just under 2 weeks. Lastly, I'm finding that it is somewhat easier to proofread shorter chapters. Anyway, on with the new chapter, the third for today, including the first. SSJ3 Kyuubi Gohan. Disclaimer: I don't own anything from the high school DxD anime, manga, light novel. All I own are my original characters and plot twists. Talking, thinking, Diedrich talking and sacred gear sounds. Diedrich thinking, expression flashback chapter 3 genetics. Kuroka was lazily swinging her legs over the arm of a large, red grandfather chair. The rest of her was curled up against the back of it. She was humming slightly, which caused Valley to look at her after a minute or two. "You seem surprisingly cheerful, Kuroka. More than usual, I mean," said Valley. "NYA? Oh, I guess that makes sense. I'm finally on track to achieving my goal, NYA," said Kuroka playfully. "Which goal?" asked Valley. "To bring back the Nekomata race, of course, NYA," said Kuroka cheerfully, still swinging her legs in happiness. "Really now? With who?" asked Valley, genuinely curious, since he knew Kuroka would only accept a strong mate. "Hee, you're so funny, Valley, you're opposite of course," said Kuroka with a giggle. "Hyodo, I didn't think he had it in him," commented Valley with a raised eyebrow. "Well, just recently, I had him in me, NYA," purred Kuroka lustfully. I must say, I'm surprised," said Valley disinterestedly. "NYA? You didn't even pick up on my hint at all, NYA," said Kuroka with a pout. "What hint?" asked Valley distractedly. "When I said he was your opposite, I meant that in more ways than one," said Kuroka seriously. "Really? I know he has the red dragon, but how does that make him my opposite, in more ways than one?" asked Valley, bringing his attention back to Kuroka. Just think about it, Valley Lucifer, NYA. Teased Kuroka, stressing the word Lucifer. Valley paused for a moment and mulled this over, before looking at her with a raised eyebrow and a slightly disbelieving expression. You can't be serious, said Valley. NYA, he really is, an angel, said Kuroka dreamily. The energy coming off him was irresistible, and the best part is, he was perfectly fine with me being a devil, as well as a stray, and gave me exactly what you want, NYA, said Kuroka happily. Wouldn't an angel fall, having impure thoughts, not to mention, sex with a devil? Queried Valley in interest. Well, as it turns out, he can't fall. I think we figured that out, the 8th time we did it, NYA, said Kuroka thoughtfully. I see, how interesting, said Valley. Oh, and not only that, since we did it so much, while I was at it, I even restored the life force he lost, from when he went into Juggernaut Drive a while ago, added Kuroka happily. Anything else? Asked Valley curiously. NYA, well, I did teach him senjutsu as well, and he picked it up, really, quickly. Especially, since every time he showed reasonable improvement, we did it again, NYA, said Kuroka happily. Very interesting, perhaps the next time we fight, he might even be able to beat me, said Valley thoughtfully. Well, as long as he keeps beating me, with his not-so-little dragon afterwards, I don't mind. It will take a lot to get me pregnant outside of mating season, but, at the very least, I can get plenty of practice in, purred Kuroka in anticipation. Line break, Gabriel. Are you sure this was the right thing to do? Asked Michael, having just had a rather tense conversation with Sirzechs. Of course, Michael, replied the voluptuous, curly-haired blonde seraph, known as Gabriel. We couldn't just let the Red Dragon Emperor perish like that, and his heart was in so much pain. I had to help him. All he ever wanted was someone's unconditional love, so I gave him mine, said Gabriel pleasantly. Well, you do have a point. Losing Issei would have been disastrous, and the boy has a rather pure heart. Whether that is for the best is debatable, said Michael with a smile, which caused Gabriel to laugh. Well, I don't know about that, said Gabriel, before her beautiful, smiling visage became uncharacteristically serious. The pain he was in, he was utterly heartbroken, like no one I have ever seen before. Michael, if you saw him now, on the surface, you would think he had only changed slightly, but, I spent days with him, helping him acknowledge his heart and just what people mean to him. It wasn't easy, Michael, he was shattered and I barely managed to save him. Now though, he has changed, however, I do believe it is for the better, as now, he can open up to others once again, said Gabriel with a frown, sounding somewhat sad. I see. I did not know that Issei was suffering so much, said Michael. Yes, as it seems, no one did. Which is what pushed Issei to his breaking point, said Gabriel sadly. Line break, ah, it feels good, Diedrich, I'm back and everything is better than ever, thought Issei happily. I must say though, I've never heard of such a thing happening before. True, all my hosts had members of the opposite sex flock to them, I've just never seen my host turn so many away, commented Diedrich. Well, we already established I'm one of the strangest hosts you've ever had, thought Issei. True, but with your natural lust and perversion, I never could have seen something like this happening, ever, admitted Diedrich. Will you die for me? Issei frowned slightly, before replying. People change, Diedrich. Even you, after so many years, have changed yourself, thought Issei, before finally reaching his classroom. I'm back, shouted Issei, as he opened the door and walked into the room, causing everyone to gawk at him. Hyodo? Where have you been for the past month? Questioned the teacher. She had an average appearance of average height, brown eyes, brown hair reaching down to her shoulder blades and a rather slim figure. I've been on a journey of self-discovery, said Issei. Whoa, Hyodo got bigger, commented one of the boys in Issei's class. I see, in any case, it is good to have you back. But can you please take your seat, so I may continue the lesson, said the teacher sternly. Of course, excuse my disrespect, said Issei, as he gave a charming smile. Is that really Hyodo? Asked one of the girls in the class, as Issei made his way to his seat. The rest of the class proceeded without any fanfare, save for the occasional student glancing back at Issei. After class finished and the teacher had left, Issei was quickly swarmed by Motohama and Matsuda. Where have you been, Issei? Asked Motohama, as his glasses gleamed. Yeah. At first, we thought you were just stuck in your bed or something, said Matsuda, getting looks of disgust from some of the girls sitting nearby. That's disgusting, shouted Murayama. Quiet you. You don't understand the pleasures of flesh, retorted Motohama. Haha, oh, that's funny guys, said Issei, getting the few people around him, namely Ika Kiryu, Murayama and Katace, to look at him oddly, along with Matsuda and Motohama. What do you mean, Issei? We are brothers in the knowledge of flesh, shouted Matsuda, his shiny bald head gleaming. Yeah, but have either of you actually had sex? Asked Issei bluntly, getting a small blush out of Murayama and Katace, while Kiryu looked on in interest, as the two perverts hung their heads momentarily. Hey, you haven't either, shouted the perverted duo, which only made Issei laugh. I wouldn't be so sure, teased Issei in a sing-song voice, getting those around him to gape. No way, Hyodo had sex, said Katace in disbelief. I wonder if that is why he got so buff, whispered Murayama. Ho? Big talk, but where is your proof? Asked Ika Kiryu as she looked at Issei with a grin, causing a few of their surrounding classmates to listen in on the conversation and turn to face Issei. Well, aside from the fact that I just did it before I came to school today and didn't have time to shower, so you can still practically smell her on me, said Issei, getting the five of them to gape. Why don't I give you some physical evidence? Questioned Issei rhetorically, as he took off his blazer, revealing that his arms were straining at the fabric of his white dress shirt. Issei then took off his white dress shirt, leaving him only in his red t-shirt, revealing his arms to the classroom, which drew quite a few blushes from the girls, and a few looks of envy, mixed with grudging respect from the boys. Lastly, Issei turned around, so his back was facing everyone, before he took off his red shirt, getting a few gasps. Holy shit Issei. What happened to your back? Questioned Matsuda, for along Issei's back were numerous angry red scratch marks. Like I said, physical evidence. She is a wild cat in bed and she can take one hell of a pounding, said Issei, as he put his shirt back on, along with the rest of his clothes, the rest of the class still gaping from what he just said. No way. Was Hyodo serious? Asked Murayama in a whisper. They did look fairly genuine, said Kiryu, commenting on the marks they just saw on his back. Lies. Issei. There is no way that is the truth. Tell us this is all a sick joke, cried Motohama indignantly. Nope, besides, this wasn't the first time we did it and it won't be the last, said Issei casually. How? Who? Why? Shouted Matsuda. How? Well, you saw for yourself how the girls in this class reacted to my body and you guys know that despite my perverseness, I'm not that bad of a guy. I'd do anything for my friends, said Issei with a frown, as he recalled an image, which was appearing more and more frequently in his mind. Will you die for me? As for who? I'll leave that until the end. The why though, is because I have superior genetics, said Issei before going silent. Well, who is it? Asked Motohama, both in excitement and envy. Kuroka, said Issei simply. That doesn't tell us anything, shouted the perverted duo. Oh, right, did I forget to mention that Kuroka is Kaniko's big sister? Also, when I say big, I'm not just talking about her age in comparison to Kaniko, said Issei, getting jaws to drop throughout the classroom. No way, said Matsuda in shock. Kaniko has a big sister, continued Motohama. Yep, although, they aren't on the best of terms. Oh, and I'll say this now. She's mine, so don't even think about it, said Issei. I can't believe Hyodo had sex with someone, said Murayama. Well, if you want, I could show you what it's like, teased Issei with a grin, getting Murayama to blush and splutter refusals. Oh, that's too bad. If Kuroka is to be believed, I'm apparently very good at it. I mean, just ask everyone who heard us near the edge of town this morning, said Issei, getting wide-eyed looks from everyone. Issei smirked at this, before he felt someone looking at his crotch, and looked to where he felt the gaze coming from, only to see Kiryu gazing at it with a blush. Impressive, isn't it? Asked Issei, getting Kiryu to nervously chuckle and look away. Well, you're not short of power, that's for sure, said Kiryu perversely, getting Murayama, Katace, Motohama and Matsuda to look at him in shock. Like I said, superior genetics, in more ways than one, said Issei with a smirk, which caused Murayama and Katace to blush slightly at the implication, while Matsuda and Motohama hung their heads in shame and envy. First, previous ch 3 of 24. Next, chapter 4, responsibility. Well, next chapter is the fight and I've almost finished it, so you can expect it soon as well. Although, fair warning, there is zero Issei in it. A few things I should clear up, in response to some Anon reviews. For the record, Issei hasn't changed that much, personality-wise. He is exactly the same as canon, except for 3 things. 1. He is now, obviously, somewhat angry with most of the orc. 2. He is now somewhat more shameless, seeing as he has now lost his virginity to Kuroka, and 3rd and finally, he is more open with his feelings now and more honest, thanks to Gabriel. Issei having 10 wings is not rushed. At this stage in canon, he was so strong that he could beat Sairaorg plus Regulus Nemea, barely, but still, a feat of insane strength. Couple this with him now knowing Senjutsu. I honestly believe that it is reasonable for him to have 10 wings, same as Dulio. I mean, I've seen writers go completely overboard and give him 14 or even 16 wings, which, considering that the likes of Michael and Azazel only have 12, is hugely overpowered. As for the repeated usage of, "Will you die for me?" that is there for a reason. It shows Issei's state of mind. It shows that Rainier is quite frequently on his mind, which is also why I say she is technically in the harem. Not in a healthy way, because she has a permanent spot in Issei's heart and mind. I mean, I never said they were going to have a good, healthy relationship. Rainier is the one thing that Issei can't shake, and me saying, "Will you die for me?" is my way of showing what Issei is going through and when she shows up in his mind. Every time I say, use that, Issei is literally hearing those words in his head and seeing her face. Lastly, I don't hate the orc. Honestly, I have a whole story up showing the orc in a positive light. While I admit I like Rias the least out of everyone in the orc, ironically, because of what she did in light novel 10, the same one this stuff based on, I don't actually dislike her. It is all well and good to want a happy ending for the orc. Let's face it, if we didn't like them, we wouldn't like the show, but this is a different take on things. You'll see soon enough, some will be redeemed and some won't. In fact, in the very next chapter you'll see someone gain huge ground on that front. Try and guess who. Also, I need to point this out again, it seems. Issei will never look at Rias, Asia, Akeno or Kaneko romantically ever again. He just can't anymore, the wound won't heal and he blames them the most, along with Kiba, about what happened. Lastly, I'm not bashing the orc. Everything Issei said is well founded and it isn't like he just randomly and baselessly starting chewing them out. He just called them out for everything. I mean, he didn't lie. Akeno is a fallen angel who hated fallen angels and even asked him about Rainier at the shrine. Asking if he hated fallen angels, Kaneko did follow him and knows what happened, not to mention she was there in the church as well during the fighting. Asia was obviously there when Rainier killed her and saw Issei afterwards. Yuto also saw the fight between Issei and Rainier. Rias was the one who had him followed and resurrected him, case in point. They all should have had some idea about what might be holding him back, but they were all selfish and only thought about Rias and themselves. Well, with all of that said, enjoy the chapter. SSJ3 Kyuubi Gohan. Disclaimer. I don't own anything from the high school DxD anime, manga, light novel. All I own are my original characters and plot twists. Talking, thinking, Diedrich talking and sacred gear sounds. Diedrich thinking, expression flashback chapter 4 responsibility. Issei was walking home after the school day. Not the Hyodo residence, which had been taken over by the members of the Occult Research Club, but rather, his apartment. Yes, his apartment, not a single room, but a whole apartment that he had purchased, with assistance from Kuroka. It seemed being bad, really did pay well. It wasn't particularly large, but it wasn't small either. 3 separate floors, with 2 rooms on each level. Each room about the size of a small, 1-bedroom house, complete with kitchen and bathroom. Issei climbed the stairs to his room, which was the room on the right, on the 3rd floor. Issei pulled out his key and opened the door and saw, perhaps the one person, he was most conflicted about, sitting on his couch by the small coffee table. "Yo, Issei," said Azazel, the leader of the fallen angels. Issei frowned slightly, before entering his room and closing the door behind him. "What are you doing here, Azazel?" asked Issei in a clipped tone. "Ho, such an interesting response. I was expecting you to sling curses at me," confessed Azazel honestly with a smirk. You are, perhaps, the only person I've yet to make my mind up about," replied Issei, as he walked to the small kitchen and filled up a glass with water, which he briefly sipped at. "Oh, and why is that?" asked Azazel curiously. "You have helped me a great deal. It is thanks to your help that I have actually managed to become stronger as a person. Even your perverted input was interesting at times. You weren't wrong about Gabriel," said Issei, as he placed his cup down on the kitchen counter, while Azazel merely looked up at him in interest from his place on the couch. "Yes, I heard you had been reincarnated by Gabriel. As interested as I am by how that was possible, I'm rather envious at the relationship you have with her now. I would honestly give my other arm for a chance like that," said Azazel jovially. "Yes, that aside though," said Issei, before he heard that same voice in his head again. "Will you die for me? On some level, I loathe you," said Issei, as he picked up his glass, downed the rest of his water, and walked over to Azazel, staring at him from across the coffee table. That is what I was expecting from you, to be honest," said Azazel with a nod. "I respect you, as a sensei, as someone who is knowledgeable on sacred gears, as a strong fighter, but you are a really shitty leader. One who can't keep his subordinates in line, Kokabeel for example," said Issei bluntly. "Is it really Kokabeel that you are annoyed with, Issei?" said Azazel seriously. "Will you die for me?" Issei snarled, clenching his fist in annoyance. "No, you know exactly who I'm talking about," said Issei, anger seeping into his tone. "Oh, and who would that be?" asked Azazel calmly. "Don't fuck with me, Azazel. You let that bitch Rainier roam free and I suffered for it," shouted Issei, his temper snapping at Azazel's calm questioning. "Well, I suppose that is true. Although, you did have ample opportunity to confront me about it," said Azazel, still in that annoyingly calm tone. "Yeah, like when I confronted you about it at the meeting between the devils, angels and fallen angels. That went well, didn't it?" asked Issei sarcastically. "Well, the situation was different then. Things were too serious then. I couldn't indulge your whims at the time," replied Azazel in an even tone. Issei glared at Azazel, but didn't say anything. "You know, they, and I'm sure you know who, are facing Sairaorg and his peerage tomorrow," said Azazel, changing the topic. "HMPH** like I care," huffed Issei. "They most likely will be defeated without you. Not just because of your strength, but also because of the strength you give them," pointed out Azazel honestly. "Well, if that was the case, then they should have cared more about my feelings, if I was as important to them as you say," retorted Issei unhappily. "I won't say they are innocent in the matter. A maiden's heart may be complicated, but a man's heart is fragile, no matter what the media might say these days," said Azazel. Issei hummed at this, but didn't respond. "Although, don't you think you are being a little unfair with them?" asked Azazel. "Funny, Sirzechs asked me almost the same thing, come to think of it. I bet he no doubt contacted you and Michael, after I confronted him and them," said Issei calmly. "He did," confirmed Azazel. "In that case, I shouldn't need to repeat myself, but I will, just in case you missed the memo," said Issei, briefly pausing. "I wanted to do much worse, but promised Gabriel otherwise, and also, I'm doing being played with, that goes for you too, Azazel," said Issei firmly. "Ah, I see. I guess you were serious about that then. Very well, as a man, a fallen angel, and, let's be honest here, the reason you are so angry," said Azazel, getting Issei to narrow his eyes at him. "What?" asked Issei. "I apologize for my subordinate's actions and for the pain it caused you," said Azazel, as he stood and gave Issei a small bow, before heading for the door. Just before Azazel had reached the door, Issei spoke to him. "I'll be honest here, I acknowledge your apology, but I don't accept it," said Issei, getting Azazel to turn his body, to face him again. "Also, I should point out that despite it being your fault, it was there to begin with. If they had cared about me and understood the pain in my heart, we wouldn't be in this situation right now and they wouldn't be heading to their imminent defeat, at the hands of Sairaorg and his peerage," continued Issei. Azazel gave a stiff nod and made to turn around, before Issei said one last thing. "And just for your personal amusement, I've already had sex on that couch 4 times," said Issei, pointing to the couch Azazel had just been sitting on. Azazel laughed uproariously before turning to the door and opening it. "Well, at least you haven't changed completely," laughed Azazel, as he gave one last look to Issei. "No, but I have changed a lot," said Issei with a smirk, as his 10 red angel wings burst from his back. I see, in any case, I'll let them know. You might be surprised though, at what they do now, said Azazel, before leaving, closing the door behind him. Like I care what they do anymore, thought Issei with a frown. Will you die for me? Issei growled, before deciding to go take a shower. Man, I hate that bitch, thought Issei angrily, as his mind was still plagued by a certain fallen angel. Line break. That is rather interesting, Revel, said Lady Phoenix, a mirror image of her daughter, Revel, in her 20s, the only exception being her hair, which was done up with ornate hair decorations. I don't follow, mother, said Revel in confusion. Well, from the sounds of things, not only has he cut all ties with the Gremory princess, but he in fact holds no ill will towards you. There could not be a better outcome, said Revel's mother. But mother, how can you say that? Asked Revel in shock. Do you not remember what happened with your brother? Questioned Lady Phoenix. Revel frowned slightly, remembering the spectacle that was the failed marriage between Riser Phoenix and Rias Gremory. While there was nothing we could do, since Riser accepted the challenge, it doesn't mean we were happy with it. Sirzechs might as well have cornered Riser into doing it, as, due to Riser's pride, he fell for it easily and we lost the marriage, continued Lady Phoenix. However, now, we might gain something even better, said Lady Phoenix, getting Revel to look at her curiously. An angel. One who cannot fall. Add to the fact that he is the holder of the boosted gear, well, that is quite a rare specimen, any way you look at it, said Lady Phoenix thoughtfully. I realize that, but considering the situation with President Rias, said Revel uncertainly. Come now, Revel. You know what we are. We are devils. It is in our nature to be selfish. Besides, it was not us who caused the problem. From what you said, this has been the case even before the Gremory battled with Riser. The fact that the Gremory couldn't see the pain her pawn was in, is in no way our fault. The blame is solely hers to bear, said Lady Phoenix. I suppose that is true, nevertheless, I feel somewhat guilty, confessed Revel, as she looked down. My dear, I'm not saying you must do anything right now. All I am saying, is that you should act as you would have prior to this incident. You don't need to feel guilty, for something you did not do, said Lady Phoenix kindly. He did say he doesn't hold any of it against me, agreed Revel. Indeed, and he even considers you his friend still. You are fortunate, said Lady Phoenix, before sighing, upon seeing Revel's still unsure expression. Listen to me, Revel, said Lady Phoenix kindly, getting Revel to look at her again. I may sound selfish here, but I only want what is best for my children. No matter what has happened to him, I can still see that you care deeply for the Red Dragon, or rather, Issei Hyodo. Whether he was a devil and part of Rias Gremory's peerage, or whether he is now an angel, nothing has changed for you. I don't want you to have any regrets, and if you really love Hyodo, you should continue to pursue him, if that is what you want. While it is all well and good to be considerate of others, you should not do so at the expense of your own feelings, said Lady Phoenix kindly. Revel nodded at this with a smile. I understand, mother, and thank you, said Revel. What are mothers for? Questioned Lady Phoenix, with a smile of her own. Line break. Issei walked to school the next day. Thanks to Azazel, he knew that the Occult Research Club would not be at school today, which he was somewhat relieved about. The day started off normal enough, but after lunch, Saji was sent to pick up Issei, as Sona wanted to talk with him. As the two walked, Saji observed Issei for a while, noticing that not only his appearance, but even his mannerisms had changed quite a deal. Even simple things, like the way he walked and the way he held himself had changed. So, is there a reason Sona wants to see me? Asked Issei curiously. She wouldn't say, only that there is something she wants you to see, replied Saji. There was a lull once again, before it was broken by Saji, as they neared Sona's office. Why did you do it? Asked Saji curiously. That's a pretty vague question, said Issei, getting Saji to frown slightly. Alright, just a joke, I know what you are talking about, no need to get all moody, said Issei with a small chuckle, before turning serious. Tell me, Saji, if Sona turned on you, would you still care about her? Asked Issei. What do you mean, why would Sona turn on me? Asked Saji, genuinely confused, as the two stopped just outside Sona's office. If Sona betrayed you, would you still care for her? Could you still proclaim you love her, if she broke your heart? Asked Issei with a frown. Saji didn't respond, and merely looked at Issei strangely. If the rest of her peerage turned on you, if nearly everyone you thought was your friend, turned on you, could you look at them the same way? Asked Issei again. What do you mean? How did they turn on you? Asked Saji in confusion. Answer this for me, Saji. If you risked your life for someone, put your body through hell for someone, endured endless suffering for someone, just so that someone could be happy, would you consider that proof of one's love? Asked Issei. Saji blinked at this, before responding as Issei expected him to. Yeah, I suppose, said Saji with a small shrug. Well, apparently, that wasn't enough for Rias Gremory, who seemed to think that everything I did for her wasn't enough to show that I loved her, said Issei, before opening the door to Sona's office. Sona stared at Issei with a frown, but also possessed a hint of surprise in her eyes. Based on that look, I take it you must have overheard what I just said to Saji, concluded Issei. I did, replied Sona curtly. Do you disagree? Asked Issei. Sona stared at Issei for a few seconds, before shaking her head. No, I suppose you do have a point. Rias is my friend and I want the best for her, but even I can't deny that she made a mistake here, said Sona coldly. Well, in any case, what is it that you wanted? Asked Issei after a moment. Although you are no longer a part of her peerage, I believe that you should at least watch her match with Sairaorg, said Sona, as a small screen dropped down behind her. Issei blinked at this, before sitting down in the seat opposite Sona and settled himself in, to watch Sairaorg's peerage and Rias' peerage battle for supremacy. First, previous ch4 of 24 Chapter 5, The Battle. Okay. Once again, time to clear a few things up. Rossweisse wasn't there during Issei's lashing, both the one he received and the one he gave. If you guys forgot, at this stage, she is a teacher and can't laze about at the clubroom all the time. She is only aware that Issei went missing and doesn't know why. Furthermore, she only just found out he came back last chapter from Azazel and doesn't know what he said to all the club members. Secondly, next chapter, I will try my hand at an M-rated lemon. Now I know the purging is still going on. I checked this last night, so it is still a thing, just not en masse anymore. However, I actually took the time to go and read through the guidelines carefully. They clearly state that non-explicit suggestive adult themes are under the M-rated umbrella and that it only becomes MA when the themes are explicit. This, coupled with what goes for an M-rated movie these days, along with what they show, leads me to believe that my lemon is acceptable. It isn't particularly descriptive, non-explicit after all, but it gets the point across. It is marginally important to the plot, so you can skip it, although it does help develop Issei's relationship with Kuroka. That being said, I am also posting it on the other site I mentioned in a few of my stories and my profile, Journalister, a site where I can post more mature things and get paid in views for my non-fanfiction works uploaded there. So if I do receive a complaint and am asked to take it out, I will, but I will leave it there, since you are allowed to post that sort of stuff there. I have also sent a PM to Mr. Goody Two Shoes, one of the moderators of Critics United, one of the two main groups responsible for reporting stories, on what constitutes an explicit lemon, and have asked for him to read mine to see if it is rated MA or M, but as of now, I haven't received a response. Lastly, I will update Heart of a Dragon tomorrow, since I did kind of leave it in the middle of something. SSJ3 Kyuubi Gohan. Disclaimer: I don't own anything from the High School DxD anime, manga, light novel. All I own are my original characters and plot twists. Talking, thinking, Diedrich talking and sacred gear sounds. Diedrich thinking, expression Flashback Chapter 5 The Battle. Now, the battle of the century is about to begin. From the East Gate, it's Sairaorg Bale's team, said the announcer, who was met with roars of approval from the excited crowd. And finally from the West Gate, it's Rias Gremory's team, finished the announcer, getting many more screams of excitement. The Gremory group looked unsettled though. Their heart wasn't with them as they marched out. The masses couldn't pick up on it, but Sairaorg easily did. Sairaorg searched for the one he wanted to fight the most, Issei Hyodo, Red Dragon Emperor. However, he wasn't there. As the announcer told everyone the rules, Sairaorg came to a decision. Once the announcer finished speaking and said for the two teams to head to their area, Sairaorg spoke up. Since the Gremory group is missing their pawn at this time, I too will take my pawn out of the equation, declared Sairaorg loudly. What's this? Asked the announcer, before looking at the Gremory group closely. Ladies and gentlemen, it seems as though the famed Red Dragon Emperor is not present today. This might explain why there was a delay for this match. However, Sairaorg has graciously taken his pawn out of the battle as well, equalizing things," said the announcer loudly. The crowd was surprised at this, noticing that the Opai dragon was indeed not present. Some of the crowd cheered for Sairaorg, for his gesture, while others muttered quietly at the lack of the Red Dragon Emperor. The Gremory group could say nothing and went to their area in silence. Line break. The first match had Yuto Kiba up against Baruka Furkas, a knight of Sairaorg, from the house of Furkas, a family that tames horses and one of remaining 72 pillar families. Kiba was being beat back by Furkas and was struggling. "I have to use that, it seems," muttered Yuto to himself, thinking of his ace. Before Kiba could use his ace though, the angry visage of Issei briefly appeared in his mind. "No, but still, I can't lose here," thought Kiba. "Baruka, allow me this one chance. Come at me with everything you have in one strike," shouted Kiba, surprising many. "Ho, that is an odd request. It sounds like something my king would say," said Baruka, from atop his stead. "Very well, I will indulge you," said Baruka, agreeing to the request, getting the crowd to cheer. The crowd roared in approval, as the two knights charged at each other. "I'm sorry, Issei, also, I'm sorry, President," thought Kiba after the clash, as both he and his opponent had been retired. Line break. The second match had Kaneko and Rossweisse against one of Sairaorg's rooks, Gandoma Balam, and the other knight of their team, Liban Cressel. Gandoma was a behemoth of a man, 3 meters tall and full of muscle, particularly his arms, which wouldn't have been out of place on a giant. Liban, on the other hand, was a gentle-looking blonde, equipped with a sword and light armor. "I can't," thought Kaneko, remembering Issei's words in the classroom and the power of his senjutsu, before remembering her sister and shuddering slightly. "Kaneko, what's wrong?" asked Rossweisse in concern. Kaneko didn't answer. The battle ended in a draw once again. Kaneko was taken out quickly, and Rossweisse exhausted all her strength to take down their two opponents, leading to the four of them being retired. Line break. Governor Azazel, as we near the halfway point, is there anything you can say on this odd turn of events? Asked the announcer curiously. Yes, it seems that the Gremory group is lacking their heart in this battle. Though it is too soon to say so, I don't think that they will be able to overcome Sairaorg and his peerage, who are all united under his dream," said Azazel honestly. Line break. The next match had Xenovia and Gasper face Ludora Bune, the remaining knight for the Bielt team, and Mistida Sabnok, the male bishop. The battle was not much of one. Xenovia was cursed quickly into the fight by the bishop, who temporarily sealed her ability to use her holy swords, while Gasper sacrificed himself to buy time, until Xenovia's curse wore off. Afterwards, she unleashed X Durandal on both her opponents, taking them out. However, Gasper too fell in battle, leaving the Gremory group with only a knight, a queen, a bishop and a king, with no pawn. Line break. The Battle of Queens was next. Akeno Hamejima against Kusha Abaddon. The two took to the air and clashed with intense blasts of demonic energy. If Akeno used fire, Kusha countered with ice. If Akeno used water, Abaddon used wind. It was a stalemate. "Come now, Holy Lightning Priestess, is that all you have to offer? You certainly don't live up to your namesake," taunted Kusha. Akeno stiffened at this, recalling as Issei claimed he would kill himself if he ever became a fallen angel. "I don't need holy lightning to beat you," roared Akeno, as she unleashed a multitude of attacks at Kusha, exhausting herself. Kusha laughed at this and a massive hole appeared in front of her, which sucked in all of Akeno's attacks. "This is the end for you," declared Kusha boldly. A multitude of holes quickly surrounded Akeno and unleashed all her magic back on her, who, in her exhausted state, was easily retired. Line break. The next to last fight was one not in the Gremory group's favor. A 12 was rolled, so Sairaorg himself came out to fight. Rias couldn't be sent out, as she had no illusions about beating a fresh Sairaorg, and Rias didn't want to send Asia out, so Xenovia alone went to face Sairaorg. "Knight of Gremory, before this fight begins, please answer me this. Where is the Red Dragon Emperor?" asked Sairaorg. Xenovia sighed slightly, before answering. Issei felt as though he was being unfairly treated and neglected, so he left the peerage in an almost suicidal attempt, said Xenovia honestly. You mean to say that he forcibly changed from a devil to something else? Asked Sairaorg curiously. Yes, using his will, he expelled his evil pieces and nearly died in doing so, answered Xenovia. I see, I thought Hyodo was a man of substance, a man who I considered a worthy rival, said Sairaorg in thought, before shaking his head. However, it seems I was wrong and he is simply a coward, one who cannot face his challenges head-on. Finished Sairaorg, getting Xenovia to glare at him. How dare you? Hissed Xenovia angrily, getting Sairaorg to look at her with a raised eyebrow. You have no idea, we too, had no idea it seems, but I won't let you spit on Issei's name like that, regardless of whether he is a member of President's peerage or not, whispered Xenovia, before shouting towards the end. Sairaorg grinned at this. There it is. That fire that has been missing from all of you so far. Come holy sword wielder, give me the fight that Hyodo won't, said Sairaorg challengingly, as a weird mark appeared on all four of his limbs. Shallow lights started to pour out from Sairaorg's limbs, before the marks vanished. A huge explosion burst from Sairaorg, the wind pressure from the blast, forming a crater under him. Sairaorg's body was now bathed in a white glow. It was Tuki. Xenovia was oblivious to the muttering of the crowd and the announcer, and charged at Sairaorg. Sairaorg fearlessly charged the oncoming holy sword wielder as well. Xenovia swung X Durandal at Sairaorg, who met it with a fist. Waves of energy burst from both of them, blinding them and the crowd. When they jumped back, the results of the clash were revealed. Oh, you actually cut through my Tuki, even wounded me slightly, said Sairaorg appraising Ly, as he observed a small cut on his fist. I won't let you insult Issei like that. He's already suffered enough and I won't let you add to that, especially by insulting him, said Xenovia coldly. I see. I'm impressed by your will, so much so, that I will face you, head on, as I would have faced him, said Sairaorg, as the Tuki surrounding him increased. Sairaorg charged Xenovia again, who once again, tried to meet him with X Durandal. Sairaorg however, fearlessly continued his charge, bracing his left arm against the blade as he sunk his right fist into Xenovia's gut, causing a sickening crunch to be heard as he shattered two of her ribs and sent her to the ground. You were a good opponent, said Sairaorg, as he turned around and begun to walk away. Don't turn your back on me, yelled Xenovia, as she coughed up a wad of blood. Oh, you were rather durable for a knight, commented Sairaorg, genuinely impressed. Issei received this attack and kept on fighting. I will as well, said Xenovia boldly. I might just be a stupid power type, one who knows nothing of strategy or tact, but still, I won't give up, wheezed Xenovia. That is some spirit you have there. Very few people have wills that strong, especially after receiving an attack like that, praised Sairaorg. If I go down here without a fight, I'll never be able to face him again, huffed Xenovia. Very well then. Along with my respect for your determination, I will give you this as well, said Sairaorg with sharp eyes, as all his Tuki engulfed his right hand, causing the blood from the cut he received earlier to evaporate from the pressure, while the fist itself seemed to glow with immense power. This is a punch which can give critical wounds by even touching it slightly. A half-hearted attack won't be able to stop this, said Sairaorg loudly. Xenovia was undeterred and focused all her power into her sword, gritting her teeth in concentration. Xenovia charged at Sairaorg, who stood there in wait. Hya! Roared Xenovia, as she brought the dual holy sword down on Sairaorg's arm, before an enormous flash occurred. When the light died away, there was Sairaorg, missing his right arm, however collapsed at his feet, was the motionless form of Xenovia. Magnificent! I will give you my right arm. You truly proved yourself a worthy opponent, said Sairaorg to the downed Xenovia, before her exhaustion overcame her and she passed out. Line break. After this battle, Sairaorg proposed a one-on-one battle between kings, to decide the battle, since it would be inevitable, with only Asia and Rias left. After some discussion, Sairaorg's proposal was accepted and the two kings faced each other. I wanted to fight the Red Dragon Emperor, said Sairaorg, getting Rias' attention. I wanted to prove that I was even stronger than that fabled creation, to cement my reputation, continued Sairaorg. However, it seems something has happened between him and all of you, said Sairaorg, getting Rias to look down. I won't pry, it is none of my business, and the way that knight fought for his honor, it would be disrespectful for me to accuse him of being a coward again, especially with her taking my arm and forcing me to use my phoenix tear," said Sairaorg, genuinely impressed with Xenovia. "That being said, I'm afraid I will not hold back here today, cousin. Prepare yourself, Rias Gremory," declared Sairaorg. Line break. The match was over. Rias stood no chance against Sairaorg. Even at her best, Sairaorg would have crushed her. As it was, she was beaten within a minute, unable to land a single hit on Sairaorg. Sairaorg Biel had totally and utterly defeated Rias Gremory. First, previous ch5 of 24. Next, chapter 6. Would you love me? Okay, I believe it is only fair that I warn everyone, there is a lemon in this chapter. I kept it very tame though, as I didn't want to come out guns blazing for my first lemon. Even though I could have easily done an insanely long, graphic and detailed lemon, but that would probably be MA rated and I was trying to adhere to the M-rated guidelines. If people don't want to read it, once the flashback starts, just skip to the next line break when Kuroka and Issei start kissing and you'll be fine. That being said, if a lot of people complain and or ask me to take it down, I will. I don't want my story to be purged, as lemons are more of a side feature to me, since I generally focus on battles, romance and character development with the occasional bit of humor or mystery in most of my stories. That being said, I would appreciate any and all feedback. Enjoy. SSJ3 Kyubi Gohan. Disclaimer: I don't own anything from the High School DxD anime, manga, light novel. All I own are my original characters and plot twists. Talking, thinking, Diedrich talking and sacred gear sounds. Diedrich thinking, expression flashback chapter 6. Would you love me? Issei had watched the entire match, with a poker face that Sona could not see through in the slightest. Even as each of his former and some current friends were trounced by their opponents, Issei didn't flinch in the slightest, never tearing his eyes from the screen. As the battle ended and the broadcast switched to opinions on the battle from various people, Issei stood up. "I will take my leave now," said Issei simply. "Before you go, just tell me one thing," said Sona quietly. Issei paused, but didn't turn around. "Will you ever forgive them?" asked Sona curiously. Issei didn't respond and merely stared at the door, leaving his back facing Sona. After a solid minute, Issei turned his head over his shoulder and looked Sona in the eye. "Perhaps," said Issei, before closing his eyes and turning back to the door. "Although," said Issei, getting Sona's attention, "for some, there can be redemption. Whether I come to see them as friends again, is entirely different, to whether I forgive them or not," said Issei, before walking to the door. "However, some may be forgiven more easily than others," said Issei, before he opened the door and left, closing it behind him silently. Sona stared at the door for a moment, studying it intensely. Well, all things considered, things could be worse, but it seems Rias has lost her dragon for good, thought Sona grimly. Line break: "You've been surprisingly quiet for a while now, Diedrich. Is something wrong?" thought Issei. "No, not really, as strange as it may sound, things are in fact better for me now," replied Diedrich honestly. "That's odd, better how?" asked Issei curiously, as he walked through school having finished sometime during the battle, between Sairaorg and Rias' respective peerages. "Well, not to sound too selfish, but ever since that time, your perverseness had gone down quite a bit. Even more after you talked with Gabriel and even more after that, when you mated with that Neko show, it even lessened each time you did it," said Diedrich thoughtfully. I don't understand," thought Issei in confusion. "Well, with the Gremory acknowledging your perverseness and using it to help you get stronger, my heart was almost broken, especially after that old geezer gave us those appalling names," said Diedrich, sounding close to tears. "However, since then, you've changed and become stronger in non-perverse ways, even faster than I could have imagined. You are almost someone I can be proud of now," praised Diedrich. "Yeah, I did put you through a lot, didn't I, Diedrich? Sorry about that," thought Issei sheepishly. "A lot indeed," agreed Diedrich. "Well, at least things are better now," thought Issei, before stopping at a door. Issei was now standing outside his previous residency. The Hyodo household, which, for all intents and purposes, was more like the occult research club household. Issei sighed for a moment, before knocking on the door. After a brief wait, Issei's father opened the door. "Issei," said Issei's father in shock. Issei didn't know what to expect, but he was suddenly pulled into the house and given a hug. "My boy, where did you disappear off to?" asked the older Hyodo male, before calling for his wife. Issei's mum came by after a moment and upon seeing Issei, quickly ran up to him and gave him a hug as well. Haha, now I feel bad. I thought you would have been happy, having a bunch of pretty daughters, without a perverted son, said Issei with a laugh. Even if you're a pervert, you're our little pervert, said Issei's dad jovially, with his wife nodding, before he leaned in closer. And, to be honest, the apple didn't fall too far from the tree, whispered Issei's father, getting his son to look at him in surprise. Why you mean? Asked Issei in shock. He just gave Issei a small wink, before leaning back. Where have you been all this time? Asked Issei's mother. Well, that's some story, but mostly, it was a journey of self-discovery. I even got my own house and a job now, said Issei with a chuckle. Really? Asked Issei's mum in surprise. Yep, I really grew up, said Issei proudly. I'll say, just look at how big you've gotten. I can't believe I'm envious of my own son, said Issei's dad, referring to his son's new and impressive physique. Hee well, if I'm going to be a man, might as well look like one, right? Asked Issei bashfully. I'll go make us some tea, said Issei's mother, before heading to the kitchen. In the meantime, said Issei's dad, as he dragged Issei to a single-seat sofa and sat himself down on the couch. I want to know who the special lady is, said Issei's dad quietly to Issei. What lady? Asked Issei in surprise. Don't be coy with me. You think I wouldn't notice my little boy finally graduated from a little pervert to a man? I'll bet that is where the new physique came from, said Issei's dad, getting his son to look away bashfully. Well, it is someone new actually, confessed Issei. I figured. They didn't say anything, but a lot of the girls around here have been rather sad this past month. They tried to hide it, but, being married for such a long time, helps you pick up when a girl is hiding something. I'm guessing something happened between you all, said Issei's father sagely. Issei was rather surprised at his father's foresight, but nodded nonetheless. Yeah, some things happened and things are not quite right between us all right now. It is also the reason I got a new place, said Issei truthfully. I see, well enough about that. Tell me about this new girl. Is she stacked? Asked Issei's dad lecherously. Well, I can't deny I'm my father's son, thought Issei in amusement. Yeah, she is, said Issei with a chuckle, before his mother came and set down tea for all of them and sat next to her husband. Well, tell us about her, Issei. How'd you meet? Asked Issei's dad. Another? Asked Issei's mother in surprise, to which her husband nodded. Well, it was interesting to say the least, said Issei with a nervous chuckle, as he recalled meeting Kuroka again. Line break, flashback, line break. Okay, I think I missed Kuo, badly, said Issei aloud, as he looked around and found himself in a strange open meadow. There was a lush forest behind him, with a small town to the front of him, but something felt off to Issei. It feels like, I'm seeing something, but it doesn't exist, thought Issei in confusion, before he quickly jumped back to avoid a blast of energy. Issei quickly summoned Diedrich, preparing to enter his balance breaker, when he heard a voice. Nya? Red Dragon Emperor. What are you doing here, Nya? Asked a voice that Issei recognized. As the smoke kicked up from the attack cleared, a voluptuous woman in a black kimono was revealed to Issei. Accident, said Issei, as he lowered his guard somewhat. Nya? You managed to find this place by accident? Questioned Kuroka in surprise. Yeah, what is this place anyway? Asked Issei curiously, lowering his arm so it was now by his side again, but not dropping his guard. Don't worry about that, although, now that you're here, even if it was by accident, what do you say about giving me some kittens, Nya? Proposed Kuroka, as she walked closer to Issei, until she was right in front of him and looked up at him with a half-lidded gaze. Would you love them? Would you love me, as well? Asked Issei seriously. Of course I would. What mother wouldn't love her kittens and her mate? Purred Kuroka. Issei stared into her eyes for a moment, searching for the truth before closing his eyes and giving a small nod. Okay, why not? Said Issei. Nya? Exclaimed Kuroka in shock, as her eyes widened in surprise. What, were you joking? Asked Issei curiously. No, I just didn't think you'd accept, said Kuroka still in shock. Well, you were straightforward about it, so why not? Asked Issei, as he caused the boosted gear to disappear. Is this a joke? Asked Kuroka curiously, eyes narrowing. Nope, said Issei simply. That's fine with me then, said Kuroka as she pushed Issei onto his back and slowly crawled up to him. You know, I have so many questions right now, but I'm not going to let a chance like this pass by, said Kuroka, before she planted her soft lips on Issei's own. Issei reciprocated the kiss in turn, finally letting his guard down. Not bad. I guess that wasn't your first kiss? Asked Kuroka, as she pulled her head back, breaking the kiss. Well, technically no, but that was a first, as far as an intense kiss goes, replied Issei honestly. Kuroka smiled, before coming down for another kiss, this time slipping her tongue into Issei's mouth, which he met with his own. Pulling back from the kiss, Kuroka sat up and pulled her obi off, dropping it beside them, letting her kimono open slightly, showing more of her cleavage. Well, Red Dragon, are you getting excited, Nya? Asked Kuroka. If we are going to do this, at least call me Issei, said Issei with a small frown. Alright then, said Kuroka, before she opened her kimono, revealing her chest to Issei. Well, Issei, are you getting excited now, Nya? Asked Kuroka. Issei didn't give a verbal reply, but instead, sat up and grasped Kuroka's ample bosom with both hands. Kuroka mewled in enjoyment at Issei's ministrations. Issei gently fondled her sizable assets in equal parts curiosity and wonder. They're so soft, commented Issei, slightly surprised. Nya? Well, Nekomata normally choose a suitable male to reproduce with, however, trying to do so without generous assets is difficult, explained Kuroka happily. Issei suddenly grew bolder and latched onto Kuroka's bosom with his mouth, while his hands focused on the one he left unattended. Kuroka gasped at the sudden sensation and wrapped her arms around Issei's back tightly. After a moment, Issei switched his mouth over to the other breast, causing Kuroka to let out an appreciative moan. Eventually, Kuroka had enough and gently released her grip on Issei's back and brought her hands to his shoulders, before gently pushing him down again. Well, I think you're ready, Nya, said Kuroka, feeling a bulge pressing against her posterior. Kuroka snaked down Issei's body, until she was now resting on his thighs. Teasingly, Kuroka reached down and caressed Issei's lower abdomen, before her hands reached his belt. Using slow, deliberate movements, Kuroka undid the belt and pulled it off Issei's pants. You won't be needing this for a while, Nya, said Kuroka, as she dropped it next to her obi. Kuroka then unbuttoned Issei's pants and unzipped them, before pulling them down, leaving him in only his underwear. Issei merely gazed at Kuroka, his eyes alternating between her teasing gaze and her bountiful chest. Issei couldn't decide which was more attractive, although, he reasoned that the gaze would change, but the breasts wouldn't, therefore, the breasts were superior. Kuroka then, unlike previously, quickly pulled of Issei's underwear, revealing her prize. Kuroka gazed at it thoughtfully for a moment, before looking at Issei. What, no insecurities about size, Nya? Teased Kuroka, getting a shrug and somewhat lecherous smirk from Issei. Hey, it'll get the job done, won't it? Retorted Issei, which made Kuroka smirk. Well, you're not wrong, Nya, replied Kuroka with a Cheshire-like smirk, before grasping the object in question. For the record, it is big enough, with a little extra, so you can rest assured, Nya. Teased Kuroka, getting Issei to mentally exhale in relief. Phew, thought she caught my bluff, but, she says it is big, awesome, thought Issei proudly. Well, are you ready to become a man, Nya? Questioned Kuroka teasingly. I don't know why you're still teasing me, you're the one who wants kittens, pointed out Issei, while inwardly restraining himself from cracking. I guess you have a point, Nya, said Kuroka thoughtfully, before, in one swift movement, she impaled herself on Issei. Oh, this feels good, moaned Kuroka happily, even leaving out her usual verbal tick momentarily. Issei once again sat up, and again attacked Kuroka's chest with his hands and mouth. The double stimulatory effect caused Kuroka to moan throatily. Not to be outdone, Kuroka quickly regained her senses and ground into Issei softly, getting him to pause in his ministrations and release a soft moan himself. Nya, that's more like it, whispered Kuroka, as she brought her lips down to Issei's once again, while continuing to grind the two of them together. Kuroka pushed Issei down once again, You can be in charge next time," said Kuroka simply, before raising herself off Issei's body, before slamming back down on him. Kuroka repeated her actions, mewling in pleasure all the while. Issei himself was captivated by Kuroka's bountiful bouncing chest, unable to do anything at the sight of them, coupled with the pleasurable sensations that Kuroka was currently administering. Kuroka's moans started to increase in volume, before she was startled somewhat, by two hands gripping her firm posterior. "You can be in charge, but I'll help," said Issei simply, before he strengthened his grip and proceeded to assist Kuroka, as she bounced on him. With both of them working together, the two quickly approached their climax. Kuroka, I'm pretty sure. Ah. I know your answer, but out. Or in? Asked Issei, as he was barely holding himself back. "Nya? Don't ask stupid questions. You know I'm not letting moan a single drop escape," said Kuroka, breathing heavily, as the two approached their respective ends. Kuroka went first, slamming down on Issei, as she gripped him tightly, which, in turn, caused Issei to reach his limit as well. After a few seconds, Kuroka collapsed onto Issei, their chests pressing against each other, as both lay there panting. "As far as accidents go, this was the best one of my life," said Issei after he had regained his breath. "Well, I didn't expect this would happen either, but I'm glad I was the scout today, Nya," said Kuroka. "Yeah, you never did tell me where I was," said Issei thoughtfully, as he wrapped his arms around Kuroka's slender back. "Do you really want to know? Or, would you rather we go for round 2, Nya?" asked Kuroka with a seductive smirk. "Well, I still need about another minute before I'm ready. Why not just give me the short version?" suggested Issei. "You're near where I, along with the rest of Team Valley, are currently hiding," said Kuroka honestly. They won't come here, right? Like, if you don't report back within an hour, they won't come and search for you, right?" asked Issei nervously. "Not for another 3 hours, although, I'm sure LeFei would love to join in, Nya," replied Kuroka teasingly. "Yeah. Well, I don't really relish the idea of Valley or Biku coming over here," said Issei with a grimace. Well, in any case, it's been a minute, so time for round 2, Nya," said Kuroka, before she sat up again. "Best accident ever," thought Issei. Line break. After numerous rounds of intercourse, the amorous duo had got redressed and Issei finally told Kuroka what had happened to him recently. "Nya? Let me see your wings then, please Issei, Nya?" asked Kuroka shyly, with a small blush, biting her index finger coyly. "Gah, who could refuse such a face?" questioned Issei, before his wings burst from his back. Kuroka looked so excited seeing them and practically pounced on Issei, pushing him back to the floor. "Ah, that hurt, you know," said Issei, as his wings fluttered. "Wow, they even move like my tails," said Kuroka in childish awe, before she softly caressed his wings with both hands. "This feels weird," said Issei, as strange tingles raced through his spine. "Good or bad?" asked Kuroka curiously. "Sort of good, but mostly weird," explained Issei. Can you wrap me in them?" asked Kuroka coyly. Issei tried to bring his wings in and they obeyed, enveloping Kuroka. "Nya, so warm and fluffy. Good night," said Kuroka with a yawn. "Oh oi, you can't just fall asleep on me like that," said Issei indignantly, but Kuroka was already fast asleep, curling up against him unconsciously. Sigh, well, I am a little tired myself," muttered Issei, before going to sleep as well. Line break. "Do you think we should do something?" asked a man. "I'm not sure, they look comfortable," replied a girl. "Still, she should have reported back a while ago," added the man. Well, maybe they got distracted," suggested the girl timidly. Well, knowing Kuroka, if someone like him agreed to helping her achieve her dream, I guess she would take it, especially with Valley constantly refusing her," said the man. "Nya, Arthur, be quiet, I'm trying to nap here," mumbled Kuroka sleepily. "That's all well and good, despite that fact that you never reported back. Although, being on top of the Red Dragon Emperor, who currently has 10 angel wings, never mind that he is meant to be a devil, wrapped around you, is something unusual," replied Arthur, the wielder of Caliburn. "I'll explain later, I need to test something now that you reminded me of it," said Kuroka, now wide awake. Issei, Time for round 8, or 7, or 9, I forgot, said Kuroka, rousing Issei, whose wings opened involuntarily as he stretched his arms. Issei blinked, before looking into Kuroka's playful eyes, before glancing to the left and seeing the two blonde-haired Pendragon siblings. Issei sighed at this, before palming his face. I told you someone would come, muttered Issei with a groan. Well, it isn't Valley or Baku, and look, even Lefei came, Nya, said Kuroka happily. I'm not doing this in front of them, said Issei quietly. Nya. Fine then, said Kuroka. I'll be back in half an hour, said Kuroka, as she made a shooing motion with her left hand at the siblings. Ah, what do you need half an hour for? Asked Lefei curiously. Don't worry Lefei. Let's just go wait for her, said Arthur, as he turned and headed away from the Nekosho and Dragon, gesturing for Lefei to follow him. After a brief pause, Lefei nodded, turned on her heel and left. Okay, round 8, this time I'm in charge, said Issei, once they disappeared. Oh, taking charge are we, Nya? Questioned Kuroka teasingly. Fine, but keep your wings out, I want to see something, Nya, said Kuroka. Issei rose an eyebrow at the weird request, before shrugging. Fine, said Issei, getting Kuroka to smirk. Line break. End flashback. Line break. Well, I can say that I had met her a while ago. However, I ran into her again about 3 days after I left here, said Issei, after snapping out of his memories. Really, how did that go? Asked Issei's mother. Well, it was interesting, we talked, mostly about what we had each been up to lately. After a while, she recommended I get a place to stay, since I have a job, and she offered to help out as well. Since then she's been teaching me some new things, said Issei lamely. When can we meet her? Asked Issei's father. Well, the truth is, she is actually Kaniko's big sister and they're not exactly on the best of terms at the moment, so I don't think bringing her by is a good idea right now, said Issei uneasily. After all, Kuroka was a stray devil, and devils lived here. I see. Well, hopefully once they reconcile you can introduce us, said Issei's father. Sure, why not? Said Issei, with a slightly nervous chuckle. After a bit more small talk, Issei decided that it was time for him to leave. Come by again soon, said Issei's mother from the door, her husband behind her as they both waved at their son. Will do, said Issei with a smile, before walking off. Well, isn't that nice? He got himself a girlfriend and everything seems to be going so much better for him now, said Issei's mother. Yeah, that's the reason, thought Issei's father perversely. Well, I believe a Kyuubi's corner is due today, especially since if I take out the lemon later on, this chapter will be a little short, and what better timing to do it, and on this particular issue, Hymen's. To begin with, let me say, every lemon which depicts a hymen tearing causing bleeding, during a girl's first time, is completely and utterly wrong. To start off, people think the hymen is some magical strong barrier, which blocks the vagina, and is torn during intercourse. If that were the case, after puberty starts for a girl, every month, blood would build up inside them with nowhere to go. To make it easy to explain, the hymen is an outer covering of the female genitalia, whereas the blood, which comes from the shedding of the endometrial lining, occurs much higher upstream in the vaginal canal. So yeah, a hymen is not broken during intercourse, but is in fact worn away a little every day, by activities such as walking, so that when girls enter puberty there isn't a massive clog-up. That being said, if there is blood, this is most likely due to irritation. If a girl isn't sufficiently lubricated, or in other words, the guy rushes, that can cause bleeding. So basically, a hymen does not tear and cause bleeding during a girl's first sexual encounter, and if there is bleeding, you are doing it wrong. Well, please let me know what you thought about the chapter, especially the lemon. I kept it tame as I didn't want to start out with an absolutely graphic lemon. However, if the feedback is good, I may try them again, for this and my other stories, in perhaps more detail. SSJ3 Kyuubi Gohan. First, previous ch6 of 24 next. Chapter 7. Forgiveness is earned. Okay. Lemon reception was fairly good. Just some of you wanted a little bit more detail, which I can easily add next time, when I do another. Truth be told, I held back, a lot, mostly because I figured, an M-rated lemon can't be too raunchy. In any case, there is now a good chance for more lemons in the future, but don't expect a lot. Lemons aren't my speciality or my focus. Character development and overcoming hardship is always my goal in any story. If I want lemons, I'd just watch adult material instead. A story to me means a riveting adventure which you can't stop reading, but then again, you can always add a lemon to an adventure. In this chapter, you will finally see Issei come to terms with a few people. I can foresee some of you disliking the changes in Issei this chapter, but I need to say this: Issei is not completely fixed yet. He is still emotionally fragile and vulnerable. Gabriel and Kuroka helped, but Issei is still hurt from his friends turning on him, not to mention, Rainier still haunts him. Also, in case some of you notice the character tags have changed, Office isn't out of the harem. I just feel that that person I replaced her with will have more of an impact on Issei, so I promoted her to the primary tag. For those of you who want the harem, this is it right now: Gabriel, Kuroka, Office and Yusaka. These are all in without a shadow of a doubt. In addition, the two from this chapter will also join them, but I won't list them yet, to not spoil the chapter. People who have a strong, pretty much guaranteed to be in it soon, chance of being added are Ravel and Lefay. Behind them, there is also a good chance of Tiamat being added as well. Beyond these 9, I don't have anyone in mind. A few suggestions have been for Sairaorg to be added, and one person suggested Elmenhilda Galstein, the vampire envoy in Volume 14, not Valerie, Gasper's friend. But beyond that, no one has really suggested anyone. This I can say with absolute certainty though: Rias and Asia will not happen in this story no matter what. Whether Issei eventually forgives them though, is completely irrelevant to if they are paired with Issei. I know that in Chapter 2 I said Akeno and Kaneko were in the same boat, however, I have spent many hours deliberating on them, which is kind of sad, but, the point is, they have a very slight chance of getting back in. The reason Rias and Asia are so much further gone than Akeno and Kaneko is because they have had the strongest connection with Issei from the beginning of canon, whereas Akeno and Kaneko joined in later on. That being said, Akeno and Kaneko were there when things happened between Rainier, hence why they are so unlikely. At this stage, it will be easier to redeem Kaneko, since I have something planned for her, Issei and Kuroka already, so expanding on that wouldn't be too difficult. Akeno though, is really hard to redeem. I'm thinking hard and I've only got one real way to do it, and it is the closest thing to an ass pull that I have ever written, so I'd appreciate ideas for Akeno's possible redemption. In any case, I'll probably update Heart of a Dragon tomorrow and then a third chance, before possibly another update for this. Truth be told, I really want to update Naruto Guardian of the Mist soon. This week if I can, before I need to go back to uni. Also, with this chapter, I've updated non-stop, every day for 2 weeks. I can't believe it. With this chapter, I will have written over 85k, 88,020 words, to be exact. And after I update Heart of a Dragon, a third chance and Naruto Guardian of the Mist, I will no doubt break 100k words. The only reason I've been able to keep writing, day after day and night after night, is because of the immense response each of my stories are getting, filled with great feedback and praise. So thank you to everyone who adds my stories to their favorites, follows and reviews them. Waking up every morning after I post a chapter and seeing 200+ emails makes me unbelievably happy. Now, enjoy the chapter. SSJ3 Kyuubi Gohan. Disclaimer: I don't own anything from the High School DxD anime, manga, light novel. All I own are my original characters and plot twists. Talking, thinking, Diedrich talking and sacred gear sounds. Diedrich thinking, expression. Flashback Chapter 7 Forgiveness is earned. Xenovia had been unconscious for over 4 hours now. While her body wasn't weak, in any sense of the word, taking a brutal punch from Sairaorg, then exhausting all her energy in a final attack, had drained her completely. As she returned to consciousness, she found that she wasn't in as much pain as she expected. "I was wondering when you would wake up," said a voice, getting Xenovia to turn in its direction. Xenovia stared blankly at the person before turning her head away. "What are you doing here, Issei?" asked Xenovia, as the newly reincarnated angel walked up to her bedside. "I saw the game, heard everything too," Issei muttered, getting Xenovia to look at him. "Did you come to gloat? I wouldn't hold it against you if you did. We couldn't win without you," queried Xenovia. "No, I'm not that petty. True, I tore into you all on the clubroom, and I don't regret anything I said, but I was venting a bit as well," confessed Issei. "You weren't wrong," Xenovia added, to which Issei nodded. "So why are you here?" asked Xenovia. Like I said, I heard everything, particularly what you said, said Issei. Xenovia turned her head away from Issei again. I meant it all. Whether you agree or disagree with it doesn't matter, said Xenovia. Who said I disagree with it? I was surprised in fact, especially that you were the one to say all of that. Why? Asked Issei curiously. The way we all turned on you, it is just like what happened to me with the church. Xenovia started, looking back at Issei again. I knew something that they didn't want to acknowledge and was turned on because of it. While the circumstances are not identical, I feel as though the intent between both situations is similar enough that I feel guilty and ashamed of myself, said Xenovia. So you mean to say, if they weren't similar, you wouldn't feel guilty? Asked Issei curiously. Don't twist my words, you know I'm not the most intellectual individual, retorted Xenovia. What we did was wrong, there is no question there. The reason I feel extra guilty is because I should have understood enough to not turn on you. I know how much that hurts, and then I did the same in turn, to someone who has been nothing but nice to me, said Xenovia sourly. Well, you weren't there at that time, so how could you know? Said Issei airily. I realize that. That isn't why I feel bad. The fact that I turned on you, without even understanding your reluctance and thinking only of Rias, is why I feel bad. The church thought only of keeping their faith and I thought only of Rias. Either way, both of us were overlooked by those we thought we could trust. That's why I feel bad, explained Xenovia. I never thought of it like that, said Issei thoughtfully, placing a hand under his face and scratching his jaw. Although, I still find it strange, how passionately you defended me. I mean Sairaorg can say all he wants, he doesn't know the truth, muttered Issei. Because, after how much we hurt you, I won't stand for anyone else doing so again, said Xenovia hotly. Why? That's what I'm not understanding, questioned Issei, genuinely confused. Even in the beginning, I didn't think much of you, just another devil. However, the way you strongly defended Asia and stood against us was interesting, said Xenovia, getting Issei's face to narrow. However, the moment where I knew what I thought of you changed, was when you asked Lord Michael to allow me to pray, said Xenovia. Why? Change to what? Queried Issei. That was the point I realized why the others liked you, and the point I started to like you as more than a friend, said Xenovia with a small smile. I told you that I wanted to join you peerage in the future, as I wanted to stay with you, however, now that is impossible and furthermore, we hurt you, said Xenovia with a small frown, before turning away again. Issei didn't respond for a minute, absorbing what Xenovia said. Do you really mean all that? Asked Issei softly, getting Xenovia to look back at him. Every word. I love you, Issei, said Xenovia, getting Issei to inhale sharply. How can I trust that you won't hurt me again? Asked Issei quietly. I promise on my honor as a knight and on my blade, said Xenovia strongly, getting Issei to look at her with a searching look. Issei suddenly smiled and it eased Xenovia's nerves. Thank you, Xenovia, and I forgive you and would like to be friends again, said Issei hopefully. I'd like to be more than that, but I will build my trust up with you again first, said Xenovia bluntly, which caused Issei to chuckle. Well, you know me, I can't stay mad at a great set of boobs for too long, said Issei, somewhat embarrassed. Does that mean you will forgive the others in time? Asked Xenovia curiously, which caused Issei's face to harden. Maybe some, but some, especially Rias and Asia, I won't be able to forgive. They hurt me too much, especially those two, said Issei stiffly. I see, said Xenovia, before the door to the room opened. Oh, I didn't think you would be here, Red Dragon, said the figure that had just entered the room, closing the door behind him. Well, I'm sure you realized by now, I'm full of surprises, Sairaorg, said Issei, as the Bael entered the room. I suppose I should apologize first and foremost. I judged you without knowing the situation, and after how desperately she fought for your honor, I would be wrong to do so, said Sairaorg. Xenovia didn't respond and merely turned her head away with a small blush, a surprising action from the normally calm, and also shameless, stoic. Yeah, I didn't expect that from Xenovia either, but I can't say I'm upset about it, said Issei kindly, getting Xenovia's blush to increase marginally. Now that you are here though, I know I have no right to ask, but what happened? Asked Sairaorg curiously. Like you said, you have no right to ask. This is between me and Gremory's peerage, said Issei, getting a stiff nod from Sairaorg. True, but she is my cousin and while beating her in battle does help my reputation, I care for her all the same, said Sairaorg firmly. Isn't that the case? Muttered Issei sourly. If you must know, your cousin is a rather selfish person when she wants to be and disregards others and how they feel, said Issei harshly, getting Sairaorg to narrow his eyes. What do you mean by that? Asked Sairaorg stiffly. What I mean, is there are only so many times a person will risk their life to save you and be taken granted for, before they snap. That's all that happened, said Issei bitterly. Sairaorg didn't respond. Although, I heard of you wanting to face me in battle. I also would love to fight you, but not for reputation. I want to fight you because you are someone who cares deeply for his peerage, who care deeply for him in turn. I saw the battle, you are all united. I don't wish to fight you because that was how things would have gone. If I was in this game, I don't want to fight you for prestige either. I want to fight you because you are someone worth fighting, someone who fights for others and sacrifices himself for others as well, declared Issei strongly. Now I feel even guiltier for having questioned your worth. I could not have asked for a more honorable battle. I would enjoy facing you in battle, said Sairaorg. That being said, I should warn you, said Issei, getting Sairaorg to look at him in interest. I saw you use Tuki, so it is only fair I tell you, that I have learnt true senjutsu from a master. Furthermore, said Issei, before his wings burst from his back. I'm an angel now and am capable of using light as my weapon, something which is absolutely toxic for a devil, finished Issei. Sairaorg merely grinned. I'm getting excited already, Sairaorg said in anticipation. In any case, releasing my wings broke my key cloak, so I'm going to need to go now. I look forward to our upcoming battle though, also, see you later, Xenovia, said Issei, before disappearing in a burst of light. That Issei sure is something, commented Sairaorg with a laugh, before exiting the room, leaving Xenovia alone. He is, thought Xenovia, happy that Issei had forgiven her. Line break. Issei arrived home and was startled to find someone already there. Irina, what are you doing here? Also, why are angels suddenly breaking into my house this week? Asked Issei, before whispering the second part. Irina was sitting on the sofa and fidgeted. Issei. Struggled Irina, before she simply stood up and offered something to Issei, with her head bowed. Issei looked at it in surprise. Is this what I think it is? Asked Issei curiously, as he took the offered object. Yep, I've kept it all this time, said Irina cheerfully, with a forced smile. Issei looked at the object. It was a cardboard dagger, held together with tape. Why are you giving this to me? Asked Issei quietly. Issei, I'm really sorry, said Irina sadly. Issei looked at her and frowned. Issei gave her back the cardboard dagger and Irina felt as though her heart had been torn out. Issei then disappeared in a flash of light and Irina dropped to her knees, tears beginning to fall from her eyes. He won't forgive me, thought Irina sadly, before another flash of light occurred and Issei was back in front of her. Issei, said Irina with a sniff, which turned to shock when she saw what Issei was holding. In Issei's hand, was another crudely made cardboard dagger. Issei, you kept yours as well, said Irina in surprise, from her place on the ground. Issei offered her his hand and she took it, standing back to her feet and quickly wiped her eyes. Of course I did. You were my first and only friend growing up. When you left, it was one of the only things I had left to remember you by, even if I thought you were a boy, said Issei quietly. Irina gave a small giggle at this, but it was strangled. I still can't believe you thought I was a boy, said Irina softly, as she blinked away her tears. You know Irina, out of all the people who turned on me, yours probably hurt me the most, said Issei sadly. Irina looked at Issei sadly. I'm sorry Issei, I didn't know about what had happened to you, said Irina. I know, that's why I'm not upset with you like I am with those four, said Issei, growling towards the end. But even before all of this, before Diedrich, before becoming a devil, before all of it, you were my friend, said Issei sadly. I am so sorry Issei, said Irina tearfully. Out of everyone there, you should have been on my side. It really hurt when you agreed with everyone that I was the bad guy, said Issei, as he grimaced slightly in pain. Issei, what can I do to make it up to you? Asked Irina desperately. Issei thought on this for a moment. Show me your wings, said Issei, and after a moment of confusion, Irina complied, revealing her two wings to Issei. If you have impure thoughts outside of love, you'll fall, won't you? Questioned Issei rhetorically, already knowing the answer. Irina nodded. Then kiss me here and now, said Issei, getting Irina to blush. What? Stuttered Irina in embarrassment. If you really love me, you won't fall, right? If you don't fall, it will mean you love me, truly love me. Gabriel told me that an angel who follows their heart, not out of sin, but out of love, won't ever be able to fall. That is why, if you really love me, this will prove it without a doubt, said Issei calmly. Irina took a moment to absorb what Issei had said and nodded her head. Will you do it? Asked Issei curiously. I will. I love you, Issei, and if this is what I need to do to prove it, then I will gladly do it, declared Irina boldly, as she placed her cardboard dagger down on the coffee table. Issei walked over to the table as well, placing his dagger down next to Irina's and turned to face her. Irina's heartbeat quickened, as she drew closer to Issei, taking in his stern-looking face and calming brown eyes. Irina stepped closer to Issei, until she was only a hair's breadth away from touching him and angled her head upwards, eyes half closing, as she leaned in. Issei brought his face closer to Irina's, so close that she could feel his warm breath against her face. Last chance to change your mind, whispered Issei. My mind is made up, I love you, whispered Irina, before pressing her lips against Issei's. Issei reciprocated the kiss, wrapping his left arm around Irina's waist while his right gently caressed her cheek and neck, deepening the kiss. Both had closed their eyes and in that moment, only felt each other. Irina was in bliss, she had been waiting for this moment for months now, and after what had transpired, worried that it might never happen. But Issei was really kissing her. After a few more seconds, the two broke the kiss, eyes opening slowly. Irina looked into Issei's eyes happily. Issei looked behind Irina briefly, before turning his gaze back to Irina's. I love you, Irina, and I guess this means you really love me as well, said Issei happily, which caused Irina to shed a tear. Irina still had two pure white wings behind her, and that was all the evidence that Issei needed. Suddenly though, Issei started to tear up, which surprised Irina, even more so when he pulled her into a hug and buried his face into her shoulder. Just please promise me, said Issei weakly. Please promise me that you will always love me and won't turn on me again, Issei continued tearfully. You had so much more of my heart than anyone in that room, because you weren't just a girl I liked. You were my friend even before all that. My precious childhood friend, said Issei, getting Irina's eyes to widen. As far as everyone in that room went, you were irreplaceable to me, said Issei, getting Irina's heart to soar. Irina gently pulled Issei's head off her shoulder and looked into his bloodshot eyes. I love you, Issei, now and forever, said Irina, before giving Issei another kiss, which he happily reciprocated. I love you too, Irina, now and forever, said Issei with a smile. First, previous ch 7 of 24 next.